It's Arbitrage. We have another content cousin today. It's Trekk with 2Ks. You guys should know him from Weekend at Crypto or Weekend Crypto. I'm thinking Weekend at Bernie's, right? Weekend Crypto. And we decided, the content cousins decided to get together so we could chop up a few things and talk about some things that Trekk. You guys know Trekk as PFC Wells in the chat, right? So let me tell y'all that, because that part gets confusing. BK Crypto, boom, first in the room.
Boom. BK Crypto.
First in the room, living up to your name. So
Right.
before we really get started, Trekk with 2Ks, content cousin. Just in case there are audience members who haven't checked out your show yet, I would love for you to just take a few minutes, like Zay did, to kind of talk about yourself, your show, your crypto journey, just a little bit that you kind of ran by us, so that those who are not as familiar with you can get familiar with you.
All right. So I am Trek with 2Ks. I go back to the before 2016 period. I'm like the 2011, 2012 period of crypto, or at least of Bitcoin, then expanding into crypto, right? I didn't actually start doing the content stuff until like 20, what was that, 18? Came back from my second deployment, didn't want to do defense contracting work anymore, thought I was going to be a dev. It didn't work out the way I thought. X amount of years later, I spent a whole, I was writing for an exchange for a bit. Funny enough, I there was a story I covered a couple months ago where they were like under investigation by the FBI. But this is like years after I already stopped writing for them. This is like back in 2018-19 period when I was writing for them.
He said, "OG."
And nah, dog. So when I be saying stuff like, yeah, I just been around for a minute and like you kind of just see things, I don't want people to take this as like I know a bunch of stuff, because I promise you, I done lost crypto, I done spent crypto, I done been, in the red on things, and I look at it now, and I honestly, like, you couldn't have told me even half of the stuff I've done over like the last 10 plus years as it relates to crypto would have even happened. I've been to South Africa. I was invited to be out in Lesotho. I've been to Latin America off of it. I've been some places. And so, yeah, did the writing stuff. 2018, I decided to actually like, let me do this social media thing, right? And the social media side of it as a content cousin has been an interesting learning process.
I bet.
Like in the beginning, I used to be on all of it. Like I had the Twitch account, I had the Medium for writing, I was doing the LinkedIn, I was doing Twitter, and then there was the IG, and then at a certain point you realize like trying to be on all of these different platforms is very time consuming. And so eventually I, funneled down into like 3 things. And so I was doing content for just writing out little article things in the beginning, and then doing like my blog stuff on LinkedIn. And at a certain point, I was doing stuff on Crypto Blood's channel. I was also trying to do some stuff with another dude that has also been in the space for a minute, named Mind Your Biz. If you're into crypto mining, he definitely knows his stuff. I was doing a faceless channel thing for him for a little bit. And then, being on the Gentleman Crypto Network has kind of been the more steady long run thing, which is funny because I started doing that about the same time that I had did Crypto Blood's channel. And it's funny too, when both of them brought up the idea to me, it was like, well, what do I do on this channel that would be different from this channel? It worked out as far as me coming up with different content ideas or things of areas of focus, but this worked out to be the longer thing that I stayed with. And if you don't know about the channel, because it's the first time hearing it, the basic idea is I cover weekend news with a filter of no price talk. So I don't do none of the chart stuff. I don't tell you what degen things is the move. I don't tell you what I'm doing. It's literally like, here's news stories. IMM in my mind, these are the things that scratch my brain, whether they be local stuff or international level stories. And so far, this was already things that I was doing before, but over a year on the Gemma Crypto Network, still here, and folks are still, coming back and listening. And it's interesting. I know in part it's because of the time when my shows come out, that whole 08 in the morning thing on a Monday of all days. But when I look at the numbers after, I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah, they do well.
we getting up there. Okay, cool. I appreciate the lurkers. I appreciate the folks who engage with me in the comments. I appreciate the scammers, because like at the end of the day, right? If you not do it, like, there was a joke me and Crypto Kenzie used to have on IG. If you know about Crypto Kenzie down in Tampa, he another one on his grind too. As far as like somebody who does the TAFA stuff, we used to joke about how, if you didn't get a fake profile on IG, like you wasn't doing your thing, like you weren't registered on the algos. Now, granted, it is a double-edged sword of like, yeah, there's fake accounts out here, and it's very easy on an IG side when you have a public account to get scraped and to get mirrored. But I remember there was that 21 or in the 22, there was a summer period where it was a number of Black and brown folks who were getting fake profiles on IG. And I was like, yo, what's going on? Like, nobody was showing any of the Black content folks love like this. And all of a sudden, like a number of Black content creators that were over on IG, it was just a plethora of fake accounts popping up and literally jacking their whole feed.
Damn.
Not just like 5 or something, pictures or videos, the whole feed. And then they would just go out and just like spam everybody's DM box. And it was just interesting to know. Like, I've been around for a minute. I'm not saying I know everything. I'm not saying I know all of the folks that Zay knows, because Zay definitely gets to rub elbows with higher up people than I do. But that's just me in a nutshell. Of I'm kind of just talking this crypto stuff and what do they call it? A griot, as far as like the orator of telling the stories of like how the space is moved. Like I was telling y'all before, in the beginning of when I got into like going to events, it wasn't a whole thing of like, look at me and I'm big and popular in social media. Like nobody was really running around on no YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or whatever back then like that. Then we did get the crypto, boys and all of that stuff. But like that wasn't how it was in the beginning of folks being so flashy and so, beat your chest about how much crypto you have and how much it equals to fiat value. It's been interesting to watch how the space has developed over these last 10 plus years, and just seeing the mentality shift, and then just the cycles of certain stuff, of behavior of pattern of behavior. There we go. Yeah, sorry y'all.
One of the things, no problem. One of the things that we kind of touched on that you had brought up, and I told you, I said I never really thought about it like that, was the mental health aspect of trying to build wealth generationally, build wealth. So you about to mess my mind up, right? Build wealth generationally, and just having I want to say the responsibility of, we talked about generational curses and stuff, you being the first to say, we're going to do things different than we did before. And we're really going to kind of figure this space out. so we can leverage it the best we can, but it does come with some, I'm going to say with some gravity, with some like, with stress.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of get your mindset on your perspective of the mental health aspect of generating wealth and building wealth.
And shout out to PFC Wells in the chat room.
I know. All of mine, though, right?
Listen, okay. On the seriousness of
Kaiser so say.
on the mental wellness, right?
Mhm.
And like I was saying to y'all before we hopped live, like there are things that I can look back on now
Mhm.
that I didn't have the perspective on it to go,
Right.
oh, that's what that is.
Mhm.
And like, so first off, let's say financial stability,
Mhm.
and then you get to generational wealth. Because if you not stable yourself, you
Right.
ain't gonna build nothing that's gonna work to progress beyond you.
No.
If
Right.
even your kids, right? So first generation down. And I can't speak on nobody else's stuff, but I know that First Mob came back, and I remember I told my cousin, I was like, listen, I don't know how this is gonna go. And I'm not out here trying to say I was a door knocker or nothing. I wasn't, being a
I
dog
know
hound. I
some.
wasn't doing all right. Sorry.
I know a lot of door knockers.
I know the Lord. Thank you.
Listen, I'm not saying I was the gun ho dude, never was in the firefight, none of that stuff. Afghanistan and Kuwait, right? If you know what Kuwait is, you understand. I have a 100% appreciation for going to Afghanistan more first, and then dealing with Kuwait second.
Mm.
But not a but. The thing of when I came back from the first one, and I honestly, the adjustment of coming back
Mhm.
and finally like getting into the rhythm of everything.
Mm.
I remember it amazed me how green it was back in the States. Like trees
Oh,
and
okay. I got what you
green trees amazed me. Grass amazed me. I remember if I didn't deploy with you and we didn't hang out on the mob, I didn't chill with you or talk to you. It was only like one cousin that I actually was like, that's who I messed with when I
Okay. Can
came
I
back.
ask a question? I'm sorry I didn't want to cut you
Sure.
off, but just as us all being military members, um, did you think that you may have had suffered from PTSD in that regard, or the things that you were just speaking of?
I didn't understand that at the time, sir.
Ah,
I didn't understand how it was messing with the sleep. I didn't understand how I wasn't um getting up to go to work. Like I remember I burned through my PTO time ridiculously fast. Like real fast. It'd be like you get up, it's 5 a.m, you look at the time, it's like not happening. Hey, I'm not making it in today. Boop. Like,
I told you that's what you gotta do.
No, I'm not doing that.
and at the time, I didn't understand it.
Mhm.
I remember I went to the post office one day because I had a PO box, and this was like right when I came back, like in the first week or two, and my cousin went with me, and the lady, I asked her a question, and then she answered me, and it didn't compute in my head that she answered me to a satisfactory degree. And I was like, wait, what?
Uh-oh.
My cousin was like, yo, hold on a minute. Ma'am, blah, 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 blah. Yes, no, blah, blah, blah. And then he translates, he intercedes. and we walk outside. And I'm like, yo, man, blah, blah, blah. If you know me and interact with me, you know I'm not a high energy dude as far as being angry or easily upset. And it was just things that I didn't understand.
And shout out to your cousin for doing that, because you know, if he's not there and you have to have that excuse me, interaction without him interceding, as you said, you know, it could turn ugly. So shout out to him for doing that.
I know a number of people when we came back, and then like again, you hanging around the folks that you rocked with on the MOB, and yo, have you had this experience? Yeah, I was at a restaurant the other day, and the lady said blah 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 to me, and I'm like, yo, I was at the post office, but I didn't understand it then. And I remember during the first MOB, somebody said a MOB is a MOB. And I didn't understand what that meant until I hit the second MOB.
Yeah.
If you know anything about Kuwait, for those who've not been mobilized or in particular to Kuwait, Kuwait is, quote, garrison-like in that you have a pool, you get to do MWR trips into the city. And this is as an active military element within that post, right?
Okay.
And so, yes, there were garrison-like things to it. But when I tell you, I know a number of people who went in cool and came back with physical ailment stuff that was just like, wait, what you mean your immune system messed up? Wait, what? How you got back issues? You was in the thing. You was in the command center, or you was in the skiff most of the time. Like you ain't even. It's like, yeah, I don't even know. They can't explain it.
And for the people who don't know, who aren't military members, could you tell the people what garrison is?
Yeah, and they don't know what MOB means.
Okay.
Mobility. They don't know what
Mobilize
MWR
and stuff
is.
like
You
that.
definitely
Okay.
want to get
Break them off.
Sorry. So if you hear a military person say MOB, it means that they were mobilized, and 8 times out of 10, they went overseas for their mobilization. We have a thing now that's been kind of going on for the last maybe 4 to 5-ish years, where we've had more stateside mobilizations that you would see stuff like the Guard, example, the border situation, or reservists. They end up doing things like MOB sites. So there's 2 different types of MOBs, but unless you're in and you hear somebody say MOB, you don't know what question to ask to dig in on. Are you talking about overseas, which is OCONUS? Or are you talking about here in the States, which is CONUS?
Yes.
Which stands for Continental United States, y'all.
Yes.
Or outside of the continental United States.
Yes.
I know you in it, so it's easy to just throw it. We know what you're saying, but just for instance, Colonel, he's Crazy Bronstein. He's a full-blood colonel in the Air Force. We didn't say MOB, we said TDY. So he spent 20 plus years in the Air Force. He may not, that's Army jargon. We did the Army as well as the Air Force. So you may have a serviceman cousin, but they like, oh yeah, that ain't our jargon. We say da 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 da.
Right.
Deployed, yada yada yada.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So where's I going? What was it? A MOB is a MOB. If I didn't do Kandahar first, I would not have appreciated Kuwait. And I wouldn't understand the statement of a MOB is a MOB. There is something about a overseas, or there's something about a military environment or military operation that brings you into the active thing.
Yes.
Where it does something environmentally, mentally, psychologically speaking, that you cannot explain to someone if they have not MOB'd. And if you have not gone on more than one MOB, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't translate. And I know this for people who've gone to Korea. I know this for people who've done Germany. Whether you are guard, reserve, or active, and I'm saying this as far as like the three military, the three army elements, Marine, sailor, whatever. Like it is something about that environment that no matter where your quote physical location is, those events and the time period and how the environment works, it definitely impacts you.
So, and of course, and I feel you. I feel you all the way to the heart. I feel you on everything you're saying. What I would like to ask is because I just for the timeline sake, while you were in Bitcoin and mobilized, were you able to still do those things and talk to the people about Bitcoin? Or when you're mobilized and you're out of the country, you couldn't really get the information and talk to people and understand what's going on? Did the two things interact?
Okay, so for the first mob, I was doing stuff before I left.
Okay.
So what is that? 2015. Okay. No, 2014 into 15. So I was doing stuff before I left. I wasn't doing the same level of activity because at that point I was still, well, no, that's a lie. I was one of the, it was in my early degen phase of like you grabbing everything because you know it sounds cool and it sounds promising, and I was definitely more on the techie side of things. So if you was telling me it was some kind of tech, it had a tech element to it, and it was not just a, oh well, you need the coin as the currency of the network versus like, no, here's what the thing is going to do, and like, yeah, we have a coin thing to it. That's what was selling me. So I had a number of things that I had got into.
Okay.
While on Mob, it was still trying to, you know, put things on the side to get stuff, but I wasn't as active just because you know how we talk about like when you're on deployment, you have this and then you have real world.
Yeah.
And real world is the whole back home thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quote high on the priority like that. But granted, there was maybe 2 people that I could talk to about it. One dude was already doing mining stuff before he came on the mode, but I hardly got to see him. And I had another homeboy. It literally took me 5 years to get him to get his first like $25 worth of Bitcoin.
Like 10 stats.
Yo, when I tell you, I was just like, and I remember when it happened, I was like, bro, it took 5 years. 5 years. And mind you, at this point, and he's a numbers dude too. So like, you know, he does his own taxes. He does different side hustle things with like selling video game systems and stuff like that. He's a money dude. And it always blew my mind that it took me 5 years to where he was like, all right, I'm gonna mess with it now. Where should I go?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, all right.
But it's a win. It's a W. It's a W.
Right. So now you got that happening, pre first deployment, post that deployment. I came back and then like I just like jump in on even more stuff at that point, right? And what happened? I hit the second deployment, that's 16, 17. And hey, what's going on, Real Black?
Real Black.
Content cousin. Hi, Ruel Black. Hi, KW1. We're gonna get KW1 to be a content cousin.
Yeah.
She know I'm gonna get her in here some way, somehow. But shout out to Ruel Black. Ruel Black, you up next. We wanna have a meet and greet with the content cousins.
We do.
Finish that question.
We did, and you know, we do want to have everybody on here. We can have a round table stuff.
We're getting there. We're gonna do it one by one first, and then we're gonna try to do like a.
We understand that everybody's busy and it's hard to link up time so everybody can do it, but we're gonna work on it because man,
and your day look like ours.
And I want to
minus the 4 children.
So let me ask you then. So let's go right with it. Since you're talking about the, you had mentioned to us in a prior
conversation.
You talked about the military connections and how we can integrate DFAST with the bit wage. So
oh man, yeah. So, and I was saying this to Joseph. I forgot what Joseph's last name is, but he's like the head dude over at Bitwage. And I don't know him like that, but like I've had some back and forth email stuff with him and like the help desk over there. I had a whole period where I think, what was that, like a year and change? I was just having my drill money just go straight into to Bitwage so that it would convert over into the Bitcoin side, and then you could split it up. And I was on Bitwage before they added Ethereum.
Oh yeah.
That was a long time ago.
So
wow.
But I didn't do the switch over.
Bitwage before Bitcoin.
Listen.
Wow. You a pioneer.
Like there's so many things that I was messing with early, and some things worked out, some things didn't. Like I was on Veritasium in the early days when Max was talking with Reggie.
Wow.
On the show.
Oh, I remember them days.
When he was doing Boom Bust. Not Boom Bust. Damn, what's the name of the thing?
He's talking about Reggie Middleton for those who aren't familiar. Because we do have like new people. Like we had a new person last week who was like, what is this about?
Right.
So I just want to do some clarifications for the newbies. But go ahead, Reggie Middleton and Max Kaiser.
Listen, so like I was doing the stuff back then, and so I'm gonna try to condense this timeline of I come back from the second MOB. I'm going through another cycle of the mental wellness thing, not realizing what's going on. I leave defense contracting. I jump fully head first, 2 feet, head first. 2 feet in, head first, into this crypto thing, thinking I'm gonna be a dev. It doesn't work out that way, but I'm not stressing it because I'm looking at what I'm holding and I'm going, okay, I'm good. 2018 come, it's like a 70% correction in all of my EVM based stuff. And at that point, I done spent crypto on plane tickets. I done spent Bitcoin on like food and cars and listen. I done lost crypto wallets. Okay.
Yes, we have to paper wallets. I tell the story all the time. Like Black families, they dining room table, they be putting stuff on the dining room table. I went and ruined one of his. Thank God it wasn't a ton on there, but I went and ruined one of his paper wallets. Like I said, they don't laminate this shit or nothing. No, they don't.
Wait, did you do one of the island things where you see something and you're like, let me just throw that in the garbage? Let me just neaten up.
No.
Did you do one of those moves?
No, because I have to explain. Well, he was there, right? So I couldn't even. It was one of those things where you watching it happen and you can't move, you can't do nothing. It's like this water is just falling all over this man's paper wallet, and it's just not laminated. That's all I can think about. Like, why isn't this laminated?
And right. Then later on, when you put your own office together, you're like, hey man, stay out of my office. Stay out of my office. Oh, no.
You gotta have guided tours.
His favorite thing, right? Don't listen to him, Trekk. I'm his absolute favorite thing in the world.
Oh,
I believe it. I believe it. It's 24 years later.
I sit in his chair. I wear his sweatshirt. I wear his hats. I got his socks on.
Get out of my office.
It's like that is the only way I can get comfortable. I have to like fit in his skin a little bit. But anyway.
But that
I didn't die, y'all. I'm still here.
Because
27 years later.
Bitwage for a while to people, and I know it's kind of scary to split up your paycheck and.
Oh, we're definitely fooling around with it for sure.
People are like, oh, but what, and I say, well, you don't have to
be
your whole.
Yeah, it don't have to be your whole paycheck.
So. What's going on KW1? Here's the thing that I think you got to put into context when it comes to Bitwage. I'm thinking about this, right? Is Bitwage for what the charge is for them converting your check,
Mhm.
sending it to the wallet you want it to be done, and then like depending on what you're doing, right? Once it gets from them to you,
Okay.
you're paying a convenience factor for sure. Okay. But if you're one of those people who kind of are on the I want to set and forget kind of thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like honestly,
Yeah.
and to the point of you don't have to do your whole check. For me, it was drill pay. I'm
Yeah,
not
drill.
worried about drill pay like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Mhm.
So it was like, all right, bet that's gonna be an automatic. The number's gonna be what it's gonna be based on whatever the drill is. Boop, let it go to where it goes, and just quote set and forget. And
Mhm.
then they're really good as far as communicating. Hey, it's holiday. There's a holiday coming up. We're gonna be observing the holiday. So like, if something would transfer, if it would be like a holiday, they're letting you know ahead of time, hey, we're not going to be doing stuff on that day. We might push the thing forward or we might push the thing backward, depending
Okay.
on what day of the week it is.
Mhm.
They're good on that part of it.
Okay.
So it's one of the simpler ways
Yes.
that you can have your stuff converted over. And as far as the folks who are, and this is something I did not know until I had to do some digging into how DFAS works.
Okay.
If you are active military, you
Yes.
have there's a section in DFAS for like where you want to set money off on the side.
Like an allotment.
Thank you, allotment.
I used to work in the orderly room. I know them forms.
So if you are guard as an M-Day soldier or you are reserve,
Yep.
I believe reserve also has it the same profile set up too. You do not get allotments. You only get allotments when you are on active duty status, which means you're either AGR or you are on a mobilization. Those are the only two times where if you are a National Guard M-Day soldier, you will have your DFAS profile fully opened to where
Yeah.
you will have the allotment
Yep.
feature in your
Yeah.
profile.
Mhm.
I didn't know
And
that
it takes a
until
while too. Sometimes, well, back in the day, because you got to
Mhm.
remember, Simon and I, we did, as the kids would say, we were in the military in the 1900s, as they would say. So when we used to do allotments, sometimes it took 2 whole pay cycles. So if you tried to do, let's say you went in the orderly room, like on the 13th, it won't even be available until the 15th of the following month. I'm hoping it's faster now in
you could
2024.
you can
So,
do a lot more on your own in DFAS now, and even just
oh,
in like
because it's
let's say
self-serve, right?
yes,
Yeah. I'm familiar with
um,
self-serve. We use it for the VA stuff, but I know self-serve got everything in it.
So can I ask,
um,
as somebody who still has ties to the military, and you talk to military members, how do you see the crypto space, but like the Bitcoin space, is when you talk to people and things that they're thinking about, as you speak
bless
of
you.
retirement and things that they're trying to do moving forward. Are you seeing any headway
Yeah,
or?
like, is there a good amount of adoption from what you can see, or awareness, right? If not adoption, at least awareness in the military community.
Listen, in 2021 into 22, I was telling the sergeant majors in my battalion, hey, you should probably do a climate survey
Yeah,
to
yeah,
figure
yeah.
out the level of interest and awareness these Joes have in cryptocurrencies.
I haven't heard that in forever. These shows.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty.
Why?
You taking it
Because I would, and as far as the military side go, I don't do all of the hey, unless we really talk and I rock with you, about my crypto side stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do the
yeah.
channel content stuff. But other than that, you don't really know, right? I was talking to my command sergeant major at the time. I was talking to the BC commander about it. Mind you, BC commander, international business lawyer. And I remember one day I had a convo with him. I'm like, so sir, if something happened to you, what would your wife know to do with your crypto wallets? and he was
Okay,
just
so
like,
he was in it.
I don't know. Like she wouldn't even know what the wallet was.
Yeah.
And he had like maybe 10 to 15K sitting on it. And it's just like, that's money.
Mm.
How about like a year ago, your man gave up his commission to go work in Dubai? Like just flat out was like, I'm out. Went over to UAE.
Wow.
And I think he's doing something related in that region. But nonetheless, like there what I noticed, especially during the whole C-19 period, because I was also dealing in the COVID mass vac sites. So I'm talking with other soldiers in different battalions and stuff like that, at different companies. And that was when Doge was on like the pump.
Ah, the good old days.
So right. So like no, this is 21 going into 22. No, what is that? Yeah, 21 going into 20, 21, 20 going into 21. And so and this is part of why I started getting into the whole thing of like this new wave coming in. They don't care about the older principle stuff of Bitcoin as peer-to-peer technology solution that allows the peer-to-peer thing of financial activity.
Okay.
There's definitely a lot more quote chasing the bag.
Yeah, we
as
talk
far
about
as
that.
the newer Joes that come in.
Yeah.
And I remember there's one dude that I knew that I was doing that stuff with, and he was actually doing the mining stuff back in like 17 up, I think, until 19. And then him and his wife literally decided like, all right, we're gonna stop because it's not doing what it's doing anymore. And like I think they just cashed everything out and then went and bought a house.
Nice.
It worked out for him in that regards, right? But like they left the mining thing. And then it was just one of those like, yeah, it's there, but you know, like I don't really mess with it right now. And then I would hear the other, you know, the E4 Mafia folks. Okay, so E4 Mafia is soldiers who are like a E4 in rank and below. So it'd be like a specialist, the private, right, enlisted side of it. So
they're like the apprentice journeyman side of the house.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would hear folks in that group and like, oh yeah, you know, I'm messing with this Dogecoin thing, or like, oh, I got this app that lets you do blah blah blah. I'm like, wait a minute, like, wait, what app is that? Is that even a wallet? And like, here's my first sign of knowing that there was definitely a shift in the mentality and the value system for the folks that was coming into the space. I remember I was talking to my homeboy Coop DeVille. He jumps into the live
chat. We know Coop DeVille.
So Coop said to me like, yeah, he discovered Ripple before he discovered Bitcoin.
Okay.
And I was just like, wait, what? How? And like it hit me with I was like, how, Sway? How?
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind because it was like, how did you manage to do, like, what were you doing to get to Ripple before Bitcoin? And then again, I'm in the era of the space where I'm in it. I'm running around Philly, I'm running around DC, I'm running around Baltimore, I'm running around like Northern Virginia. So I'm going to those type of events where I'm talking to the more techie folks and the more like folks who are closer to the earlier part of the introduction.
Okay.
So the mentality, the understanding, the value matrix was X amount different to by the time you get to 17 and definitely 18 and after. And it just like blew my mind to be like, yo, like, and then I started hearing it more and more of other people who were like, oh yeah, I found out about, you know, crypto through blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's a total shitcoin. Like, what do you mean? What? And so, and then you look at it now, and then like when we got to the NFT stuff, like The NFT folks was on a whole different level, especially once you got past the whole thing of like artistic aesthetics and the appreciation of, where I would be in Spaces, and what was the other joint, the other app? That was hot during the beginning of C19, Clubhouse. And
Oh Lord,
people would argue
It's not my favorite
down.
spot.
That's your favorite space.
Let me tell you, Trekk.
See, hang out
Right. So
Clubhouse
Clubhouse was exclusive, and at the time we had iPhones. So
People
I
were
was
selling accounts.
right. So it was like, yo, somebody get me on. Finally, I don't know if anybody knows this, but we're gonna tell y'all this now. Before we linked up with the gentleman of crypto, we used to do a show on it's acrossthefader.com. My cousin's the CEO. We used to do something called Wealth Wednesdays, and they didn't know nothing about Bitcoin. So we spent about a year and a half.
Yeah.
We were trying to be equity partners, et cetera, et cetera. It didn't work. But I say all of that to say that, in the space, we're trying to just kind of talk to people on some, like, you really don't know about this? You never heard of this? You don't?
No, it wears you down because after a while, you're like, whatever. I can't. Every day somebody say, well, what is Bitcoin? It's like, so
It
you
was
had to go
over
over
and
some,
over and over and over again. And you're just like, we got a little bit discouraged. And then I tell y'all all the time, I admire one of the most, aside from his intelligence, and I think he's the most handsome thing I've ever seen. I admire that my husband has vision, right? He always has an idea, something comes to mind. I don't have vision, and I find it to be a gift almost from the Most High. And he said, you know what? Why don't we go to El Salvador, right? We'll treat it as a vacation, but y'all know how we get down. We're going to treat it as, like, we call it a studycation. We're going to go down there. We're going to see, how they're getting stuff going, yada, yada, yada. And our trip to El Salvador kind of revitalized our, what's the word I'm looking for, babe?
Well,
Revitalized our, I guess, passion for, let's see what we can do to get the information out there. Now he's way more passionate on getting the information out there.
Yeah, and I just reached out to King Bless and said, hey, I'll just we can jump on your show and tell you about
tell you about it, right? Boots on the ground. You know how we get down.
And then that's when he was like, no, well, actually, we wanted you guys to
we
get
wanted
a show.
to talk to y'all about y'all own show because they came on Wealth Wednesday. Simon had introduced them to the Wealth Wednesday audience who couldn't appreciate what it was just blessed, right? Just came blessed. Couldn't really appreciate the information. He's also a serviceman. For those of you who don't know, King Blesses, he was a naval officer.
Yeah, public information officer.
But just officer in the Navy, and they couldn't appreciate the value of the information he had. Right, so that was like problem number one. It's kind of like getting Max Kaiser to come into a group who was going to ask them what's Bitcoin. It's like that's not. And maybe it is, right? Maybe Max is like, yeah, I love that. We're gonna do the apologetics. Ask me any question you want to, and I'm gonna stand up here. Yeah, he is. He's gonna pinch his nose, and Stacy's gonna have to smile and take it over. But it really revitalized. Like, this whole show, this whole thing is my husband's passion. I do it because I know how much fulfillment he gets from giving out the information and so on and so forth. And even though I'm the most extroverted of the two, and I will sit and I will study it. I sit at his feet. I listen to I take his mentorship. Yes, my husband's my mentor. Go on and send me the emails, ladies. I give him the credit that he deserves. I give Jack his jacket all day long. Y'all say that in Jamaica? Give Jack his jacket.
I'm not gonna go into that one on this one.
You give Jack his jacket. It's like giving him his credit, because it started off, as you said, with your commanding officer, Aaron. If something happens to me, everything is in your name. You don't have to fight over it or worry about it or turn no papers in, but everything's in your name. But you have to know what to do with it and how to, progress it forward in the event that something ever happens to me. Unfortunately, my timeline with Black men and Black women in 40s and 50s is the
Yeah,
mortality rate is terrible.
it's terrible. And like we said, I don't do this for me. I do this for the family and for the generations to come.
For our grandchildren.
So that's why I tell her, like, hey, this is where the keys are. This is what, where to get this, where you get that, and that's for them, not for me. I'm building for the family out. I'm fine. I'm cool. But I want to make sure that everybody,
the grandchildren have a head start, right? Because like our children, they have very comfortable lifestyles, maybe too comfortable some days, right? Like this little one here. But it's the grandchildren, because I'm gonna tell you a story. Everybody know I'm West Indian. My grandmother's father, JK used to work in Venezuela, which is right next door to Guyana. And they used to pay JK in gold ounces, 1 troy ounce. I think he used to get paid like 12 or 15 troy ounces because they were building something dangerous. People were dying. Not the Panama Canal, but something along those lines, right?
Right.
So he was getting a bag, like for real. And JK and my grandmother and my great grandmother Susan, they were separated. I'm telling y'all all my tea. They were separated, but what he would do is, and they were separated for good reason. He had a whole nother family in Venezuela. She was tight about it. JK would come and bring Susan a satchel with, I think my grandmother says, 7 troy ounces. Can you imagine if somehow, some way, my grandmother held on to all of those ounces, or half of them, or just one per trip that he would drop off and say, here, Erin, get your start in life. You know how much that would be worth today? So, I remember telling Simon the story. This is right around the time when he wanted to do something kind of different. He was starting to get into precious metals. And I said, oh, well, you're talking about precious metals. Let me tell you a story about my grandmother.
I know your jaw dropped, bro.
His jaw dropped. He was tight. Like, really? And not one of them made it to you? I said, not one. He was thinking, like, you know what? What if she said, you know what? I know I'm gonna have a granddaughter one day, or a grandson, or whatever. Because I got siblings, and we got cousins. You know how West Indians are. There's a shit ton of cousins. But let's just say I was the only one. And my grandma said, one day I know I'm gonna have a grandson or a granddaughter, and I'm gonna save this for them. Yeah. Imagine how life-changing that would be. And that's when he started going hard with the gold and the silver. We have 4 sons. We know that the probability of us not having any grandchildren is slim to none. We know we are going to have a grandchild, if any, right? So to have this, and we tell them all the time, it's for you, but it's not really for you. It's for your kids, because we can take care of you in this lifetime. It's them that we may not be able to give that type of help to, or, you're young, you may be sure, you may have children older, whatever. So them and their children were trying to, and have enough. I said, Simon said, let's just treat it like all 4 kids are going to have 4 kids each. So that's 16 grandchildren. Well, let's treat it that way. So there's enough wealth so like his vision, I commend him for his vision. I commend him for his vision, because people don't look at it like that. There's no shade to the people who want to spend it all, right? Bitcoin Rodneys, et cetera, et cetera. No shade. But in his mind, like, he came up with the aggressive plan. We're going to move. We're going to do this. Our risky investment is to invest 80% of our revenue that we generate and live off the 20%. Which is a great lifestyle. Don't get me wrong. It does come with some. It does come with
trade-offs
drawbacks because of where we are. But like, you just like, wow. That's just an incredible vision and plan. The discipline that's required. It really built our character.
Well, I appreciate the thoughtful and beautiful things you said. I appreciate that.
I tell you that when the people ain't on here. Don't be trying to say that like I don't tell you that in private.
But I do want to ask Trekk, to be honest, because we are what do you call it? I lost my train of thought. We are investors in precious metals.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there who say that Bitcoin is gold
2.0.
How do you see that? Because you know as they say, as Max Kaiser would say, the tenets of money, as you will, by Aristotle, Bitcoin maximizes
Yes,
all of those tenets of money.
absolutely. It optimizes.
Optimize. That
It's
might
the
be.
it's the best it can be.
Yeah. So, do you think Bitcoin is Gold 2.0, or is that something that people are mixing together and it's two separate things?
You need this, baby.
So, Zay says, okay, in relation to the characteristics that people value within gold as a precious metal,
Mhm.
yes, there are things in similarity that Bitcoin in particular shares as far as how the current community, even though we have subgroups in the community, look at Bitcoin in particular. I'm
Okay.
not saying nothing about all the other stuff. At the same time, though, I heavily agree with something that Zay had started saying a while ago about the idea of Bitcoin works because it's a freedom technology.
Amen.
If you talk about financial responsibility, economic sovereignty, as far as the ability to hold, store, transport, possess, spend, and receive, the medium, the financial instrument isn't the focal point. I forgot what I was listening to or who I was listening to, and they made a point about how, in general, money is just a trust mechanism amongst people who don't know each other in regards to the trading of goods. I don't know who you are and you want to buy this computer, but if you have the money, hey, guess what? I have enough trust to know that this money that you're sending me in order to acquire the product that I sell, it works. Boom, here you goes the computer. I'll take the money. The distinction gets into, at least in my mind, and this also goes to that the book I was telling you about before about the sovereign individual, which is something that they bring up back then about how governments, and it really is in this regards playing out very similar to how they were talking about it in the book, which I believe came out in the 90s, as far as governments are going to look to find more ways to get involved in how you have financial or economic mobility. So if you look at how the banking system works, if you look at how money, well, if you look at how fiat is in particularly covered in like in a sovereign's country, in a sovereign country's legal system. Case in point, anytime you have an issue as far as the situations happening right now with with any of the crypto related scams, or the people who have deal with any of the crypto related issues, as far as the SEC, DOJ, FinCEN, FBI, DOJ, all of them, the one key charge is always in relation to fiat. It's always in relation to the money part, because that is the sole jurisdiction of the sovereign government. If you don't off ramp or on ramp on the fiat side, they will find another thing to get you on. But if you look at all of the cases and what's going on, it damn near 10 out of 10 is always because at some point they touched fiat. Even look at like the RICO charges and stuff like that. Now, I haven't been to jail or nothing like that, but that's something that also runs through that realm of, like, when you catch those type of charges, it's always on the end of, at some point you touched fiat. The undercover gave you cash and you accepted it for illicit substance, blah, blah, blah. The fiat is what messed you up. Now, as far as this thing, it would Bitcoin being like on parallel par with precious metals, whether gold, silver, palladium, platinum, whatever. My thought process is this, and this is one of my issues that I've had about precious metals, especially for like the folks that I listen to and cross-reference their information and understanding of it, like Lynette Zhang, Catherine Zeta Fitz, you guys, even what's his name, Peter Schiff, and is that everyone's like, oh, gold has been operating for so long, gold has been around for 2,500 years, and it's like, I hear you, but the concept of money has been around much longer. And the only reason that gold tends to work as the longest medium of financial trust, as a trusted financial medium or mechanism, is because the ability to control, influence, and throttle that medium of resource is dependent on the political situation and technology. Every time the medium of money changes, it is because the technology changed. Case in point, in what's his name's book, the Bitcoin Standard, he brings up the point about how there was that tribe on the island who used the boulders as community value. Where's the technology in that situation? It's the Europeans who come with the boat, who have the ability to go further out into the ocean and use the lifts and pulleys to bring up bigger boulders. And what did they do? They flooded the market with the medium of that community that screwed the whole market value system up. The technology was the boat, and the fact that they had the pulleys and stuff to then bring in more boulders.
Well, let me ask you a question then, because I know you were a guy who is in technology and works in technology. Shout out to Dr. Safety and the Moose. That's who you was referring to as the Bitcoin Standard.
Yeah.
So we follow a gentleman, Anthony Pompliano. Can I get his name right?
Pomp.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pomp.
Shout out to Pomp. He said something about things like gold being analog and Bitcoin being digital. And he speaks on how things that were first analog, the digital version is better. So would you see like Bitcoin being the digital version of analog gold?
I can agree with that. And I will say, like, and Andreas was definitely one of the, no, would you say Pomp?
Pomp, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We got that from Pomp.
I have certain issues with Pomp, but
they're there.
He's got utility though. He's got great.
No. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying he don't. I'm not saying it. I have certain thoughts. If you go back in some of the episodes, I've said certain things about how I see what he's done over the last 15 months. But anywho,
okay, yeah, no, this was wild.
There was something that he used to say in the beginning. I don't know if he says this as much now because I don't listen to him like that now, but he was making a point in the early days of when he started doing the YouTube channel about how he sees crypto as one of the mediums of a financial instrument that will exist in this modern day world / going forward in the bigger economic ecosystem. So there will be fiat, there will be precious metals, there will be crypto, there will be probably some variation of a CBDC. I have a whole nother thing about how the CBDC thing is going to follow the same explosion of the crypto cycle, as far as like how we went from, in let's say 2015, there was like maybe 200, 300 different crypto things to now, we jumped up to a couple of thousand. But at a certain point, we're going to have to go through a culling. It's going to be the same thing with the CBDCs. And like, there's a website that tracks all of the countries or jurisdictions that are running CBDCs at some phase, right?
Wow.
So you're talking, there's 200 different countries, but it's not all countries that are running CBDCs.
Yeah.
There's about 130 CBDCs projects in some phase of development / execution. The more poignant examples are probably under 10 right now. China is one. It's really annoying to me what Venezuela's situation was with them. I have a whole nother thought process on that. And real quick,
let's go.
Jake,
let's go
Jake
there.
Fever. All right, I'll go there in a second. Jake Fever. Yes, you are correct. Notice what I had said though. I said majority of the times there is a fiat related charge to that situation that you're in, legally speaking. It's not saying that you ain't gonna get arrested and go to jail, bro. I'm just saying X amount of the time the charge is currency related. So as far as the Venezuela thing, then you got like what Russia is doing with, like, Russia just signed a deal, was that December, with UAE for their CBDC, right?
So can I ask a question right here, so that you can keep on going in about what you're saying? Because many times on this show we go in about the BRICS nations and the things that they're doing to usurp the United States dollar and the ways that they want to have their own CBDC. You talk about Russia, which is one of the most powerful nations in the BRICS nations, working with Saudi Arabia. Go ahead, go in on that.
Okay. My outlook, and I think, and I've covered it on different episodes. The indicators that I see are there are going to be direct country to country agreements on CBDCs. China already did it and Russia already did it. Considering the shifting of the geopolitical economic power influence, I only need probably one or two more countries to show their hand as far as publicly announcing those agreements. So you know how you have what do they call them? The financial, what is it? The money swap agreements between countries. So look what Argentina was supposed to be doing with China, and then as soon as the new dude came in, he was like, "Nah, we're not going to do that no more." So he cut the program, right? China's still like, "All right, well, you don't want to do that no more. All right, cool. You know, we're not gonna pressure you." And so you look at it and go, "Well, how are you going to fix your economy, sir? You stunned your nose at the BRICS seat, and you are somehow sideways, like showing your ass to the US, but then you're still on some like, well, you know, we still want to follow through on the WEF agreement that we signed that now is going to put austerity programs. Well, there was already putting austerity programs in before when they initially signed the deal with the World no, was it the World Bank? Sorry, I'm jumping. All right. Let me step back. With the Russia situation, I've been saying for more than a year, Russia is not anti-crypto.
Okay.
And I've covered a number of articles that highlight how their central bank and their government have been coming up with their regulatory framework to implement CBDCs, to implement other types of digital assets, and to do things that would allow them to function outside of the SWIFT system as well as outside of the CIPS system, CIPS.
Yeah.
Right. China has also worked to do the same thing, and they're just moving X amount ahead of most of the globe as far as we tested our CBDC, aka Blue Dog, locally. We saw that the adoption rate was within margin of error reasonable. Guess what? Now we're going to start pushing it outside. But before we push it outside, let's put it in the sandbox and see how this works out. Hong Kong is the mainland's sandbox. and I've been saying this for a number of months, ever since I heard, well, it was a couple of different things that happened that I heard that made me go, Hong Kong seems interesting. I actually want to go to Hong Kong this year, if not next year. Right?
Okay. That's not
it was Arthur Hayes who said something. Yo, Arthur Hayes, his articles or his thoughts that he writes on stuff be dumb long. But he weaves things in there that if you just solely looking at the US, you're totally missing what's going on outside. Right. He said something a couple months ago. A couple months ago, fourth quarter last year. And then I heard again Hong Kong or something else. And then next thing I know, I'm looking at the article stories on the weekend in that 72-hour window. And like the last, let's say 4 months, I kept noticing Hong Kong related stories were popping up. It was in relation to the crypto. It was in relation to their regulations. It was in relation to CBDCs. Lo and behold, what does China do? China goes, all right, we're going to put our CBDC in Hong Kong. And we're going to see how this works. Hong Kong as a sandbox is very interesting because Hong Kong is the only exit port of precious metals for mainland China. You can't go into mainland China, buy any precious metals, and think you're about to leave with it. That is a national no-no. You can go to Hong Kong, though, and you can buy precious metals and leave with it, right? As well as you can bring it in. You can do it where you connect your bank on the mainland, and then you have your bank in Hong Kong. Now, there's a number of Westerners, there's a number of Europeans and stuff that are in Hong Kong who just go to set up their business. It's literally they just had something that came out. Somebody put in an application to do an ETF out there. I imagine before the end of this year, they'll probably have 2 to 3 different ETFs besides Bitcoin way before us here in the US.
So let me ask you, Trekk, I'm sorry, not to cut you off, as a forward-thinking person in this space, technology, crypto, Bitcoin, when you go to Hong Kong this year or the next year, what are you looking to do? What information are you looking to take out of that environment?
So there's one to see like, okay, how are the local people talking about this financial sandbox? How is it that the adoption of the CBDC has gone down to the retail level? Other thing, and I've said this the last couple of months too, I think that China is going to push their blue dog along the BRI, Belt Road Initiative. So case in point, they just did the agreement with Singapore to have the CBDC there too. So right now it just looks like the seaports. I'm waiting to see who's the land port country gonna be.
I'm very
right. Now, as far as going to Hong Kong, and I would also be interested in this in other regions too, but Hong Kong just ends up to be the kind of the first one. Granted, if someplace closer pops up, I'll probably go there first. It's expensive to fly out that way, y'all.
Yeah, I'm sure. Especially now, are you still in New York? No,
I'm down in the DMV area.
Okay.
So
it's still expensive, but yeah, just a little bit lower.
That's a long flight.
So the thing that is my attraction is I'm curious as to what the gray market stuff is going to look like. There's going to be the official, like, hey, I represent firm blah, blah, blah. I deal in these financial instruments as far as something fiat related, something like FX or arbitrage. Hey, I deal in ETF stuff. Hey, I deal in crypto as an exchange. Hey, I deal in precious metals. But what are the gray market things going to be that come out of this? And I in my mind, if there already are not some kind of inklings or buddings of gray market, I don't know if to say services or products.
Yes.
But in my mind, people being people, there's going to be some type of gray market that will be like the secondary, third tier markets off of this main sanctioned thing? That's what I'm curious about. And I think that it will be other regions that will also have the same thing happening.
Dang.
So,
and also just to piggyback off of that, we always talk about people going to other countries, and we ask that they get on the ground and do research, not just to have a vacation party at resort areas. What you are speaking of is actively going out there and doing some work and figure out what's going on. How important is that? Because for the people who we see travel to Cancun and where else they're going, the DR and all this stuff, passport bros, how important is it to go travel and actually do some work, do some research, boots on the ground, figure out what's going on?
okay, so here's a fun, like, all right. I've been a couple of places, and people are sometimes like really surprised when I be like, "Oh yeah, I've been to that place."
Why are they
And
surprised?
the whole tone thing, the tone thing throws people off when I tell people some of the places I've been.
Okay.
And especially when I say it's outside of the military. So it's just like,
oh,
you
yeah.
been there? And they're like, well, why'd you do that? I was curious. There was a conference. I was interested, or like I had the money and the time. You know how it is post MOB. You got like 2-3 months before you gotta go back to real world things. So you just like,
Yeah.
I'm out, right? And I remember same homeboy. It took 5 years to get him to get crypto. He had not left Maryland until he was like near 30.
Oh wow.
But you from New York, there's folks who've never left their borough.
I tell
And
him
I was
that all
trying
the
to tell him
time.
for years.
They had
Bro.
a statistic that said your typical, I'm talking about New Yorkers who live in the borough, the metropolitan New Yorkers, typically don't leave a 6-block radius.
Facts.
So I was telling them, like, you're not going from Brooklyn to Long Island. Like, the fact that, such and such would go from Corona to, you know what I mean? Like, that's not.
You're not traveling left, right,
Stuff like that. Now, granted, people do shop, like, we're going to go to Manhattan for this, or I got to go do this because I got to go to my cousin's house. But that holds true in a lot of other markets. So hubby is from Cincinnati. I don't know if you know that.
Okay.
And I think the majority of the people he knows, minus one, because Pete traveled his behind off, they don't leave the area that they grew up in, really. It's
Facts.
called the Heritage. They move around Cincinnati. There were a lot of people in Cincinnati who wouldn't go downtown, and you were like, but why?
So what
but why?
But what you will notice is when you see these certain cities in the United States of America, you have different type of cities. So you have a city like Cincinnati, where the people there are residents. Where you go to a place like Orlando, you call
They're
them
transplants because they're New Yorkers.
And then you see like New York people who came from another country. And then you see some places like in what do you call it? I call it most people call it the Midwest, but I call it like the Rust Bucket, Milwaukee.
I'm not the Rust Bucket.
Well, Milwaukee, Indianapolis, these places like Indianapolis, these people aren't from anywhere else. Their families grew up in Indianapolis.
But generations.
So you see different cities, you go out to the West, you catch, LA, it's all kind of different people in LA.
Transplants.
So, it's different cities in the United States. If you check out different cities, if you travel and you
San
do
Antonio
things like
would
that,
be a transplant city for sure.
yeah, because there's so many military members
right,
there.
because of Lackland and
so you got those cities, man. Iowa City. Anybody ever been to Iowa City, man? Everybody from Iowa City been in Iowa City since Iowa City.
Since their great granddaddy. And Rue is in the chat saying he's from Detroit, and it's the same way. If you live on the east side, you don't leave the east side. If you live on the west side, you don't leave the west side. So that holds true in most markets. I just remember the study was about New Yorkers, and even on Long Island, I had a lot of like friends who we lived in a town called Lakeview, but most people would be familiar with Hempstead. They ain't really, other than to go to Roosevelt Field Mall, they ain't really leave and go nowhere.
I don't go out in Hempstead.
See? Everybody know Hempstead, right? The stead, but yes, it's a little shaky. But
Okay.
but I was still trying to figure out why they would be, shocked that you travel. I'm trying to pick up the vibe on what is it about you that makes them surprised.
So yeah, like I'm not as traveled as I would like to be,
None of
but
us.
nah,
Can
you
we
got some people who
travel?
don't
None
want
of
to
us are.
travel. You got some people who don't actually want to travel. Like I know people who are in the service who don't go anywhere outside of if they're on a mob.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I know them.
And then when you get to the regular people, again, you got folks who never go past 6 blocks.
Yeah.
So,
Typically.
but I don't know if it was part of just because of how I grew up that like moving around was a thing. And then to understand like when you get out there and then you're engaging and not like, oh, I'm just staying in the touristy area
Mm-hmm.
and going through that experience because that environment is X amount artificial.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why we always tell people don't really try to go with
Like
intention.
when I went to Thailand, I wasn't a fan of Bangkok.
Bangkok had you.
Why not?
Bangkok has them now.
No, I thought everything I heard. I thought Bangkok was a great city.
Don't
Oh no,
listen.
listen. I'm not saying it's not a good city and stuff. It was just more like, and I was in a nice hotel and everything, and like the dude who was doing the chauffeur and stuff for me was cool. It was just it was like 5 midtown Manhattans just like condensed into and it was, and granted I think I was there for like maybe 5 days, but it was still just like this is I'd rather go back over the patio and just like chill out where I'm just like walking around, sitting on the beach, going to the temples, you know what I'm saying? Like I like history, I like natural stuff. I'm a techie person, but I also have a big appreciation or a better appreciation in these latter years for nature and simplistic things. Like I solo camp. If you'd have told me 8 years ago, 10 years ago that I was gonna be a solo camp dude, like I could start fire in the rain.
So you are one of those guys I like to ask these questions because you are a native New Yorker from the city of New York.
I make that joke all the time, yo. I'm a city boy. So
oh my bad. I mean, but I'm saying as time goes on, you don't see yourself as a city person. You more prefer the rural areas if you're to travel.
I know I can't move back to New York.
I've said that before.
But no, what I'm saying is he's talking about New York type cities like Bangkok. Like that's not what he prefers. He prefers to be out in the rural areas.
Why y'all think we don't live in Mexico City? Because I can't do it. It's too
Mexico
much like
City
New York.
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Too much like New York 1990.
Ooh.
Ask him. I have the whole of Mexico City mapped out spot for spot, New York. Right, I know this is the Upper East Side. This is Midtown. This is Soho. I have it all mapped out.
She tell me, don't go here, don't go there.
I had accidentally stayed in a spot, and I said, "This look like Brooklyn." My aunt used to live in East New York. Okay. She lived right across the street from Kings County.
Everybody had to go.
Hospital, not jail. And I'm like, this look exactly like East New York, down to they call them abaratas here, but we used to call it the bodega, like down to the bodegas. Like, what is this? And then they used to be like, Linda, it's muy peligroso, meaning it's very, very dangerous here. What are you doing here?
See, and I would be the idiot though to go walking around at some point. Like
that was me. That was me.
I will definitely go wandering off someplace, eating street food. Like heaven knows, man.
It's just like Brooklyn. 1990 though, right? Because it has a air of antiquity about it. It's not as like what is now. Yeah. And I haven't been back to New York since I left. So
and it's right. Like I said, I spent a long time in Medellin, Colombia, And people coming to me like, man, it's peligroso.
Yes, muy
They're telling me,
peligroso.
they're telling like my watch is too nice.
Yeah.
Be careful. Your shoes are too nice. I said, what?
I'm just
I
dressed.
said, what's somebody gonna do? They gonna rob me, take my shoes off my feet? Like I didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
I walked home one day, like you said, getting some street food.
It's got a Brooklyn vibe to it.
And the guy asked me, do you want me to walk you back to your hotel?
Like, no.
I said, first of all, that's kind of questionable to start with. But no, I'm okay. And I'd rather somebody jump me and beat me up than what you might be trying to do.
Right.
But anyway, they was acting like it was super dangerous. I said, well, I don't know.
But yeah. Because Trekk, we live in the bush, right? Yeah, we live in the bush, and while there's a lot of inconveniences from a woman's standpoint that go with it, I'd rather it than I can't do New York ever again.
Like, and that's something that I understand and appreciate now, as far as like the things of city life versus like quote suburb life versus that whole where you live on the border of like the city county line versus, hey, like I'm out in the rural part and I got at least 1,000 yards between me and my neighbor's house.
Yeah, we have acres like that between us and this neighbor. We have goats, sheep.
Yeah, let me ask you. Listen, in your travels, I tell people that it's not like the United States. You don't go from city to suburbs and all this stuff. Like when you get to these other places, it's like you're in the city,
city, and then it's the bush.
The bush.
Nothing in between.
I was in. Nothing in between. Where was I? I was in Cambodia in Siem Reap, right? And I had did an ATV tour. So we out in the rice fields, like out in the rice fields. Okay, I told you I'll go off and wonder. Okay,
but it's wet though, right? There's rice. It's it's mushy. It's swampy.
Oh, we was on a dirt road thing. It's no hardball, nothing. We was on a dirt road, and I look and I stopped for a second, and I'm just looking. I said, "Yo, I can't see nothing but that one shed over there where somebody live." And when I look this way and when I look that way, this is the road this way in front of me, and I'm looking to my left and I'm right, and I'm like, I can't see another house dwelling for a while. If this dude left me, I would not know how to get back to where I was. And the crazy part about how Siem Reap works, for the time that I went, which was like 17, that city, X amount of the streets aren't like clearly labeled, but like my tuk-tuk dude, he knew where everything. Yo, I want to go to this. All right, bet, I got you, man. Let's go. And we off. And he would take me someplace. Oh, I know somebody who could. I want to do this. Okay, bet, I got somebody. And then he would go take me. And I'm like, yo, how does he remember where all of this stuff is?
Yo, it's crazy. We've been here 5 years. I don't know the name of any streets in this city. We got to use landmarks like, okay, it's by the church. Okay, nah, it's over there by the police department. Oh, it's next door to Soriana. We don't know any of the street names here, including the street that we live on.
Here's another thing I want to throw out, and y'all have been about. So have you noticed how, and I remember when I was trying to explain this to people who didn't travel as much, or who have ever traveled like to the quote non-touristy places. The thing of what the hustle and bustle looks like in the West, in America in particular, is not the same thing when you go to some of the Latin American countries as well as some of the Asian countries, where, like, all right, I'll give you an example. I forgot where I went in Cambodia, but it was a touristy thing. I was at one of the temples, and so you have the folks who are selling the trinket things, and then there was like a whole group of guys is like laying over there on the grass, and there's like the little scooter bikes and stuff over there. And I remember the first day I went to the temple, I didn't really pay attention to it, right? And so you see all of the stalls and the people are selling and, you know, giving you food and all of this stuff. And I stayed out there like a fair amount of the day. And by the end of the day, what I noticed was like the difference in the hustle and bustle and the networking that happens in that setup, where the dudes who were just sitting over on the grass and the bikes that were there, they were the ones who were giving the ride to the ladies who were working the stalls, the ladies and the guys who were working the stalls. So, and mind you, these areas are like kind of outside of town. So you're not just like walking your way back. And it wasn't until later on when I started like looking around for when I was just like roaming the streets and stuff, where I started to kind of see the same setup of like it's X amount of people who are over here doing this thing, and then you got the other folks who they got the bike, so they work hand in hand in tandem of you do what you do to sell what you need to sell. When you need to get the ride back home, boom, I'm gonna do this for you. And like, but the networking and the hustle and bustle, it looked different because I was still trying to compare it to like what I understand in like New York, what I understand in like Brixton, what I understand in like Miami, what I understand being in the West. And like even when I went to Chile, being in Santiago, like when you're in what they consider the inner city part of it versus the suburb part of it, because the conference I was at was in the suburb part, and then like I was walking around the city part, and I was also amazed at how many Haitians were in Santiago at the time. There's a whole thing going on about how folks are moving
ask you
through.
right there?
Yo,
I just wanted to ask you because I've heard mixed reviews about how people who look like us are treated in Santiago, Chile. We've never been there. We always say, "Hey, I would love to go to Santiago." How are you treated there? I mean, how did you feel and everything?
I mean, I spent most of the time in the conference setting.
Okay.
I went out, I think once or twice we went out to the nightclub. It was a very different experience as far as going out to their club setup and how they do the whole you can't just go to the bar tender and be like, "Hey, I would like this drink." And again, like I said, I'm one of those like I'm just let me go roam around. And we went to this club where it was like in the basement of this building. It was arguably only one exit in / one exit out.
Oh, I hate that.
Listen,
I hate that. Okay.
I'm that fool at times, right? But I mean, I had no problem with like the what's the thing called? The Uber drivers, the hotel place I was staying at, the folks there were cool. Going into like, you know, X amount of different restaurants and stuff, that was fine. I do wish I'd have been okay. I would say this: if I would have been better at Spanish, I could have probably enjoyed the communication and interaction more, considering, you know, predominant language. And I think I was only did like the city part, like, what was it, the last day? And yeah, at that point, it wasn't like a full getting to explore everywhere and, you know, walk around. Because again, most of it was at the conference side, and that was outside of the inner city part. I did appreciate, as far as being able to talk to who I was able to talk to, that was cool. I didn't run into anything that had me going like, hold on, are we having a skin tone issue right now? But I will say it is definitely there's a noticeable difference of like when you're in the suburb side versus when you cross over into the more city side. Like you'll definitely see the shade change, at least for the time that I was there, and that was like 2018 or 19. But I should also add, there's the part of like, oh, you're the American, like, so you know what I'm saying? Like, there's that that the kind of kid gloves that people do with you because you're quote the American. Like case in point, I was in Joburg, right? We in a cab and we was in an Uber and I forget where we were going. And the police over there, it's not an uncommon thing to get pulled over. And because in outside of the US, there are a number of countries that still allow you to use fiat cash for Uber, right? And so
you can do that here.
Case in point, I remember when I first got out of the US and was doing Uber stuff, I was really like, wow, that you could still do that. But nonetheless, we in the cab, well, we in the Uber, and they literally sit right off of the exit ramp. So you don't got no which way around not running into them. So of course, we get off, and then the dude knew, he saw it and he knew. So he just slowed down and it was like, yeah, right here, park right here. Pull over. The guy I'm with, he's from what is it? He's from Ghana. I forgot where the Uber driver was. So I'm in my phone doing something. They start talking first. The guy comes up. Hey, boss, how you doing? Where are you guys coming from? How's the day going? Oh, everything's all right. I just had the guys, I'm driving them to where they need to go. My host talks first. Well, my host talks after he stops talking to the driver. He talks to him and he hears the accent and stuff. And then he says something, and it seems that the attention is now on me. So now I look up and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And then you sort of look in his face where it's like, oh, American. All right, I'm not going to do this. Hey, all right, you guys have a good day. All right, be safe out there. Don't worry. And then I'm talking to my guy and I'm like, yo, was that about to be what I think it was? And he was like, yeah. And even the driver knew if I wasn't in the vehicle and if I didn't say something, he was going to get shaken down right there. And that's because they still use cash in Joburg.
And talk about that because we talk about traveling and stuff, and these are some of the pitfalls, because we
used to stay getting pulled over.
Yeah, we stay get pulled over, but you have to understand some of the pitfalls when you try to go out here and these arbitrages.
Yeah, it comes with
some things that you have to understand.
Some inconveniences.
I want to put some respect on your name because you are a well-traveled man. You're all over these places, and that's great that you go in these places and do this. And I just want to give a salute to you because you've been to these places. You're talking to people about the crypto and everything that's going on, and I mean, just well, how would you say it? Like a gem to the community.
All right, let me give you an example of something too on that whole going places and the idea, and this is also part of why I really try to cover these international things so that people kind of get some perspective on how crypto works in the West or how crypto works over there is not all encompassing universal. I remember in 2016, I was in South Korea and I went to the Bitcoin center out there. So I'm talking with the guys and I'm like, all right, so like what exchanges do y'all use? And they were naming, I was naming exchanges that were known in the West. I was naming exchanges that were in the American market. I was naming Kraken. I was naming Coinbase and stuff like that.
Coinbase, yeah.
They had no clue what I was talking about. And then I was like, well, so who do you guys like actually listen to as far as like the crypto news stuff? And then I'm naming Western personalities. They had no clue who I was talking about. And I was just like, wait, what do you mean you don't know who Max Kaiser is? Wait, what do you mean you don't know who Andreas Antonopoulos is? And then that was my like, oh shit moment of, oh wow, like, yes, we are all interested in crypto, but there are things that do not translate in the global setting the way folks would think. And you only know that when you go out there, when you start talking and getting lost in streets, and you know what I'm saying?
So we had a
And
show not too long ago that had we had a friend on there, the chief. You should be familiar with the chief. And
Mhm.
the chief was talking about, the innovations in crypto and tier one countries, et cetera, et cetera. And I had brought up during the conversation where we live is a very densely populated town, right? Very populated town. The majority of the places in the town don't even accept a card. They don't have a square, a block, whatever we're calling it now, right? It's cash only.
Pesos
So
only.
just understanding when he talks about everybody's going to get a cell phone and they'll have the technology on the cell phone, the majority of the people don't pass a third grade education. You cannot assume that they'll be able to the mass adoption is going to take. Now we talk about how important education is. El Salvador is different, right? They have a president who's passionate about getting his country out from under the weaponization of the dollar. So he went hard with education, implementing this, getting people to go out, foot soldiers, right? More than a grassroots movement.
Mhm.
Mexican president is like 80 years old. He don't give a shit about none of that.
But and also with his bringing in people, investors from Western nations.
Right? So like there's like a whole initiative to create the game theory for Latin America. Let's go back to here at Mexico, right? Where we are here in the bush. It's cash heavy. I want to say, and obviously I did not run a survey, but just eyeballing our experience here, ATMs are always empty. There's always a cash flow problem because a significant number of the people here in the town are unbanked. There's an area where all of the banks are, and if you drive in the opposite direction, there is no ATM, there is no bank.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talked about on some of our shows is the remittance
Oh, that
payments.
line be wrapped
Because
around the block.
they're using what? What's the black and yellow spot called?
They use Western Union.
That's why we were talking about
Oh.
where Bitcoin and payments, where you can shut down those fees that Western Union.
Oh, and they're
MoneyGram
high
has.
as hell.
They're crazy.
Mhm.
So just kind of having an idea or being just a bit more cognizant that the Western world is a very small minority portion of the global world and what adoption looks like in the global world, right? We're talking about a town who doesn't even have the they have the ability to take the card, but they don't. When we go to the gas station, I can't tell you it is a lot of turnover in employees at the gas station, obviously, right? Just keep that in mind.
And just
You
for,
know what they do?
just for reference, in these other countries, we can't pump our own gas.
Oh yeah, it's full serve only.
People pump. People
Mhm.
No
pump
such
gas
thing as
for us,
self-serve.
and we have to pay them.
Yep.
Right? It's full serve only.
Yep.
So what the guys would do, and it don't matter who the new guy is for the day, he'll stick the card in the machine and then hand us the machine to run the transaction. I run the transaction. We get gas 20 times for the month. Aaron runs the transaction 19 and a half times for the month because it's somebody new and he doesn't know how to use a card because not that many people use the card. So now we're asking them to get a wallet and purchase Bitcoin off an no, you're not doing that.
Okay, so all right. Here's another thought on how I look at this whole thing about mass adoption. In that, if you look at it from a technology development, X amount of all right. First, I'll focus on the financial part. The idea of mass adoption is the thing that leads to better financial activity, or it will help for financial inclusion. That's a marketing bullshit talking point. Because if you look at how banking as a mass adopted financial ecosystem has gone, it always leads to expansion of debt or majority of the time, it leads to the expansion of debt instruments, right?
Mhm.
Because if you, and then there's the other part of how it plays into, well, now we have a better mechanism to track how people's money is moving based on quote what their work generates, right? And so those are two of the areas where it comes to the thing of, well, you need to have financial inclusion, but it has to be in this banking setup like this that allows us to monitor, that allows us to push financial debt instruments on you as products and services, versus just you need a medium of technology that allows you to store, transport, spend, and receive um financial value at your discretion. That's
Right.
not necessarily what the traditional banking system is as it's set up now. Case in point, the Dodd-Frank Act is what is it like? I think chapter 8 or verse 2 or whatever like that is what allows American banks to say to you when you go in, hey, I need to pull out $5,000, and they be like, hold on a second. What you gonna do with that? Where you gonna
Yeah,
go with
they
that?
wanna ask.
You know
Yeah.
what? We're not gonna give it to you. The Dodd-Frank Act is what allowed that to happen. And that was under somebody who I didn't vote for, but we're not gonna go there right now. So that's part of my financial inclusion or adoption thing. We're selling the positive talking points and not addressing it as part of what the issue is, in that it doesn't, we're not pushing financial inclusion to actually give people economic sovereignty. The whole idea is to be able to get you into a system that you're better at being monitored.
Okay.
You're better at being control/throttled. Most folks are not going to go through the extra steps to figure out, well, how do I put X amount of my earned capital on the side, or how do I put it into other things that I have more positive control of? Most folks will not do that. That's a simple, sad truth. Like, there, for how do I say this? For where I was in 2014 and how I looked at the space and how things were going, and like just for who I was hanging around and how we were talking back then, and then to see where we are now.
Yeah.
In some regards, this joint is like night and day when I look at the crypto space. It's like night and day when I look at it.
Man, that's a great.
And so I had to adjust.
We
I
all
had
did.
to adjust my exception of like the reality of like, what does mass adoption actually means? It means they're going to simplify it and make it as quote convenient and Apple-like as possible as a product for the regular average Joe. And that's a part of the whole, like, in order to get it quote mass adopted, you need to take out X number of the features and functions and just do the bare minimum stuff. And if I don't want to do the bare minimum stuff, well, that's not how we offer the service or product now. But I understand how to do the other stuff. I don't want just the basic plan. Well, if you want that, we're going to charge you. Wait, why are you going to charge me? It used to be free. Wait, I could hold my own crypto in my own wallet, and now you're telling me you're going to charge me on the money that I'm giving you to then go and get the crypto? Like, get the hell out of here now. And when I look at how this space is working, yes, I appreciate technology and I appreciate certain convenience factors. Case in point, I appreciate Bitwage. I've used Bitwage for a good while now, right?
Okay.
That's not one of the things I would have issue with. Aside from, there is still definitely an outside influence that can be put into Bitwage to where, like, oh, listen, we can't exchange your fiat check this week, And
Yeah.
I don't even I don't know if they would get the shoulder tap from Gang Gang. I don't know how they would actually send that out to the users of the platform. I don't even know.
This is true.
Let me not
That's
say
very
too
true.
much on that, because as far as everything right now, it has worked as advertised. But considering that they work within the traditional banking setup, it can definitely be at a certain point, whoever's in charge as far as like presidential administration or SEC or DOJ for whatever reason, be like, hey, we think that this as a service shouldn't be a thing, or hey, somebody on your platform did X, Y, and Z, so we're just gonna blanket the whole thing. Case in point, right? 3 cases. I'm gonna bring up 3 cases. One, the IRS last year won a case that says if they're investigating someone, example, I'm under investigation by the IRS. I've done financial transactions with you. The IRS can go to your financial institutions and get all of your records. Your financial institution doesn't say nothing to you. The IRS isn't going to say nothing to you. And then if you do find out about it, they'll be like, well, you're not under investigation, so we don't have to say anything to you. That happened just last year.
And let's say that louder. She said daisy chain.
Daisy chain.
Because that's what the FBI does to people. They daisy chain people. Yes, you're not actually under investigation, so we don't have to tell you anything.
But we're investigating the hell out of you.
Exactly. Then there's another 2 cases that happened. Both of these cases involve the FBI, right? So this wasn't last year, but it was, I think, 21 or might have been 22. But it was in this latter half of the early half of the 20s. So basically, the FBI had a warrant to go into a safety deposit box and get the contents, right? They get the safety deposit box content. What they then proceeded to do was they took a number of other people's stuff. That's still in court right now. Exactly.
Because those boxes were next to yours, I guess.
And we did a show about people who have those deposit boxes and saying,
I tell you, don't leave. Don't put your precious metals in there.
As they say, if it's not not your cheese, man, you need to have your stuff within your home. And there's certain ways you got to do it, man. But yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy that they do that. But like you say, they do it, and you got to go get a lawyer. You got to fight it. You got to waste your money trying to fight this.
And then here's another one that happened. I forgot what the name of the company is, but this case just came where the verdict was the FBI went beyond what the warrant was for. So the basic idea was there's a company that offers deposit boxes. They don't want none of your info. They don't want to know what's in your box. They don't want to know what your first name is. They don't want your blood type. They don't want no social security number. The FBI goes, hey, you guys have bad actors using your facility. Now, apparently there might have been some undercover work where one of the owners said something that they were like, well, that's what that means. That's what that means, that bad actors are using your facility for holding illicit gains of drugs and money laundering. They go to a judge. The judge gives them the ability, because apparently the deposit box, it had iris scans and 2 other things. I can't remember what it was. But oh, by the way, shout outs to Steve Lito. That's the dude who I be following his channel. He reviews a lot of court cases stuff. And I just seen that on his thing. But I bring this up to the point of traditional banking versus you putting stuff under your mattress. Like, for as much as people might try to sell you on the idea of this thing is convenient or this thing is so simple and easy to use.
There's always something to it.
It's always a trade-off. It's always a catch of how comfortable are you and willing to deal with that trade-off. How much do you value the thing that you're giving up versus the thing that you're receiving? Another thing to note in relation to this technology thing and this whole, the general of how technology works, and then what I'm also seeing repeat within the crypto thing is that what governments do, what businesses do in collusion with governments is they will provide conveniences of innovation and application of a product or service, which moves you further and further away from direct access to the thing. Farming is like that. Computer stuff is like that. Banking is like that. You have a bank account that doesn't have actual money in it.
Yeah.
The whole thing in the blockchain space, as far as like second and third layers, building on top of the primary layer, Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever chain you want to talk about, everything moves you further and further away from the base asset, the base resource, the base ability to have positive control and direct influence on that thing. That's literally how this stuff is moving and working. Yeah. And again, like I said, to look at it from 2012, 2013 period to look at what's going on now in the space, it definitely looked like night and day.
Yeah.
It looks definitely does. And so what I would say, I always tell the people that we didn't kept them too long. But we want to, with our good brother Trekk, with 2Ks, is we want to be able to do this maybe, I would say, once a month. Where we chop up game, because we got so much to talk about that, we can't just cram it into one show, but just on a monthly basis, we need to just get in here and chop up game with the family.
Yeah, the content cousins need to we need to work together.
Yeah, unite.
Because it's not something that people see often, especially with Black people, right? They always want to isolate us, separate us, create some type of division. We got beef, you the ops, yada yada yada, right? So we absolutely want to change that narrative, and we want to get together. As I make the joke about content cousins, but on some real shit, we need to nation build the community and treat each other like family, share the information, move in solidarity with one another in order to kind of like a game theory, kind of set the flame so that other people will kind of mirror what we're doing.
Build the networks.
Yeah, and we can
build the networks.
Network. Rule, you up next.
Like I be saying the same thing as far as like, all right, so you remember the example that they were that I think that was at some point last year where there was like, if you gave somebody an ounce of gold or $1,000, like, and you gave them the option of like which thing would you choose, and most urban people would take the $1,000 in part, and it's the same thing I was saying to you off air about like, for my kids' operational environment, the crypto thing isn't relevant because of their operational environment and their network and where they are in their stage of life and stuff, right? So like that whole thing of like you building a network. So if you are into precious metals and you over here buying your precious metals, but you don't take the time to actually go and deal with other people who have things as far as resources, product or service that are also into precious metals.
Yes.
What you doing with 50 pounds of gold? Like nothing. Because you don't know, you don't have the network to exercise the buying power of it.
Right. And the bartering, the bartering.
You see what I'm saying? Like, and most folks, especially if you're really on some urban stuff, like I'm a city boy. I'm a city boy from New York. It wasn't until I moved down here in the DMV, and then unit wise, I've been in the infantry unit for a minute. Even though I'm a 25U dude, I'm a commo dude. I'm a techie dude. But it wasn't until then that I started understanding of like, all right, like I'm into this stuff, but I know this crypto stuff. I know this precious metal stuff, but if I don't get the network of people who will also understand these things, what does it mean?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You just got a paperweight.
Right.
On either side, you just got a paper. Your wallet is a paperweight, and your precious metals is a paperweight.
Mm-hmm.
So
So we do want to try to shout out to the gentlemen of crypto who are the ones who have the vehicle for us to try to get together as content cousins and really leverage each other's knowledge and experiences against one another so that people can, make more strategic decisions, make more strategic moves, play the game of chess, right? Muggs is out here playing shoots and ladders. Like, y'all ain't serious at all. And we really want to kind of change those narratives for sure.
And we definitely, we chopping up game with Bitcoin Zay. We're talking about trying to get a meetup here in Mexico.
I heard. I want to come to Mexico too. I want to come to Mexico too. And I'm okay. I'm okay with only eating once a day.
Creators and all the people, the followers and all the people, man, we're gonna do a thing in Mexico, man, and chop up the game. What we have to do is we got to make sure me, you, my beautiful wife, we can link up maybe once a month and just have this conversation, man, because it's needed.
Yeah, it's necessary. Needed. But we did keep them way too long, especially since our day started at 4:30.
Oh yeah,
Zero dark 30.
I was looking to, I was like, oh, I gotta do a couple more things. I gotta still set up like one or two more things before I actually hit the hay. Oh man, but I appreciate y'all.
Steps. I still got 2,000 steps to go. So we love y'all. We definitely should all meet up KW1. We're gonna figure something out. Bitcoin.
What up, Shango?
Hola. Bitcoin Shango. I like that Bitcoin Shango.
He probably service too.
Oh, okay. Hey, shout out to him, man.
Hi, Michelle. Yeah, it's my bedtime too, KW1. That baby running around because he know mommy is preoccupied. So I gotta go, pull the warden on his little butt.
And
enjoy your last minutes of freedom.
He ate my food while we was on the live stream, so I don't have no food. But it's all good. I'll eat tomorrow. You know how it go.
Oh, thank you for your service, Bitcoin Shango. With prior service, Air Force, and I did my Air Ready Reserve in the Army, and Simon did like 12 years in the Army.
NBC technician, nuclear, biological, chemical warfare technician.
I was a 74 Delta. I was a paralegal in the Army. So, which had nothing to do with what I did in the Air Force.
But hey, we did it.
Oh, thank you, Bitcoin Shango. We appreciate y'all. Ruel Black is up. We're gonna be working to try to coordinate this, but Trekk, we talk anyway, often as possible. So we're gonna keep that up, and that way we can kind of figure out how we can kind of make this a thing for sure. Right, and you let us know when we coming on Weekly Crypto. What time do you shoot? Wait a minute now. Hold on a second. I need a break on Saturday and Sunday from dark 30.
Listen, I was telling hubby there, like sometimes like I be up until like 2 a.m. trying to put this stuff together.
Oh Lord, and then you up at 4:30?
No, so the 4:30 time recently that just started, but before my time was moving different. But recently I became a green suitor, so yeah.
Yeah, we got to do it to fit everything in. We full-time homeschool children. I do have a full-time gig.
Apparently, I'm a Mexican basketball coach.
He's also a basketball coach. I got to get my steps in. So I can, I got to keep it sexy for him, right?
That's what they
so
say.
I don't have no competition here in the country, but I don't want to get complacent.
There you go.
I don't want to get.
There you go.
But we're gonna shout out. We're gonna keep this going. We're gonna figure out, is what I wanted to say, how we can kind of have our shows, but definitely have collaborative efforts so that we can leverage the knowledge and experience all together.
For sure.
Oh, thank you, Bitcoin Shango. You got my head like.
Very well said. Very well
No,
said.
but he gets the credit for it because this is hubby's vision. This is his baby. So I got to do whatever I can to help bring it to term. So
There you go. Work in tandem.
all right, y'all. Have a great night. I gotta go corral this little baby running around the house because he's way past his bedtime. And I'm gonna talk to you guys. We'll talk to y'all on Wednesday.
All right, later.
All right,
Bye,
thanks.
y'all. These are my kiddos. So you always keep a special eye on what happens in Mexico. Oh, the Colonel, we're about to come off now. You're gonna have to watch the replay. But the Colonel, he's a full bird Colonel, Crazy Bronx Don. So salute to all the servicemen in the chat. Thank you for your service. And I don't say that lightly. Simon and I we do war campaigns that we appreciate because we know what theater of operations look like.
Definitely. And we know that. Yes, we definitely do.
So thank you. Bye, y'all. Bye.
Yeah.
Trekk, stay on real quick. Oh, the Colonel's mad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We gave you the notification.
Watch the replay. I didn't send a
Yo, we gave you enough